Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Crispy Noodle Podcast's The Crispy Compact Communiqué. Here we are. We've survived the new year. We're in 2021. Um, Things are getting even crazier here on the Crispy Noodle. As you can see, I am on the Millennium Falcon. I have places to go, people to see. Mike is playing PlayStation 5. This is a crazy
Yep.
2021. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Rich. Hanging in there. 2021 is surprisingly very similar to 2020 so far. Only a week in. But as you mentioned, been playing a lot of PlayStation 5, playing all those great Christmas presents that I got over the holiday season. I've been enjoying Spider-Man Miles Morales. I've been enjoying Sackboy Great Adventure. Planet Coaster has been occupying a good bit of my time on PlayStation 5. I love a good roller coaster sim, and Planet Coaster is the new hotness for me. What I really like about it is the level of detail you can get down to with customizing everything and placing really detailed decorations and combining decorations into like little set piece moments. So you can create, like, for instance, like a skirmish between like pirate and like colonial animatronics. You could put like a couple different decorations together and like link them all up. It's really, really cool. Way more fine tuning than, like, say, old school Roller Coaster Tycoon. It gets really into the nitty gritty where like vendors have to take breaks, and like people that are running the stalls have to have like a staff room nearby. And so there's a lot of like that really great management sim stuff going on.
There
And it
you go.
runs
You can be your own
beautifully.
boss.
Yeah, I can be my. I know exactly, and it runs really good on PlayStation 5 so far. So if you're into coaster simulator, park simulator type games, and you don't have a a gaming PC, or you just like to game on console on your TV, definitely check out Planet Coaster. It's been a lot of fun so far. So that's what I've been doing. I've also been watching The Mandalorian. I told you before the
Yeah.
show. Yep, I finally dove into that. I'm 4 episodes in. I gotta say, for those that thought season 1 was a little meh, like I did, season 2 is, I think, a little bit better overall. Halfway through, and I'm at a point in the story where I think some big things are going to start happening. So I'm really eager to continue the season. Whereas last season, around episode 4 or 5, I was like, I'm not really feeling it. It's a little bit different this time. There's better hooks, I think, overall. So,
I
yeah,
told you the Mandalorian is single-handedly saving Star Wars right now.
you could be right, because this, combined with a lot of the news that I saw, a couple weeks ago about all the new shows that are planning, and the new movies and stuff they're planning, I'm really intrigued. I've always been fascinated by the larger universe. And like I told you before the show, I feel like the Mandalorian is slowly starting to peel away at that large universe and diving into it. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. So
There
yeah,
you
for
go.
me, I've been doing Planet Coaster and the Mandalorian. Rich, what have you been up to recently? I have a feeling I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, obviously we're a little stripped down on this week's episode. The reason why was because my laptop broke. So my laptop is currently in the shop getting repaired right now, just like the Millennium Falcon.
There
There's
you go.
much needed repairs. So unfortunately, we're a little bit stripped down this week. We're not as polished as we usually are. But you know what? That still doesn't prevent us from still getting you a podcast, some sort of show, something to let you know what's going on in sports, entertainment, and odd news.
That's
So
right.
thank you guys for still tuning in and following us, even when we're out and about, or the laptop is broken, or some other weird thing happens to our little show. We still keep rolling on. I guess my update would be is that I watched Cobra Kai season 3.
Okay.
It is everything that I wanted it to be. It is perfect.
Well,
It
that's
is.
good to hear.
It is. It is exactly the direction that I wanted it. That I wanted the series to go in. I can't wait for season 4. I love all the ridiculousness and the meta humor, but also there's enough teen drama and um, uh, good storylines with the kids that keep you hooked on emotionally.
Okay.
It's the perfect blend of comedy, drama, um, weird throwbacks to the 80s. I love it. It's perfect. You got to watch it. If you even remotely liked the Karate Kid movie, you have to go see Cobra Kai. All 3 seasons now on Netflix. It is perfect.
Okay.
So definitely love that show.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you were really looking forward to that. So I'm glad that it was everything that you wanted it to be. Because
Yeah.
I know that's one of your favorite shows on right now.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those that I think the right people took that show over and knew what they wanted to do with that show. So I'm glad to see that it was in the right hands.
Okay, good. You know what's not in the right hands, though, Rich?
Perfect transition.
That's right. The Philadelphia Eagles. We got a little bit of football news. Of course, we kick off every show, the first segment being sports. And this time we have a little bit of, or a lot of sad news surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles. First up, we'll get this headline out of the way first. It was announced that Eagles defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is stepping away from football in 2021. He's not re-upping his contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. So in addition to all the questions on offense, we now have a lot of questions on defense. A new defensive coordinator brings new schemes, brings new personnel packages, brings new philosophies. So the Eagles in 2021 could look way different. Rich, Jim Schwartz helped deliver us a Super Bowl in 2017 with that defense. The past couple of years, the defense, however, has been a little suspect, been great at times, been really bad at times. What's your reaction? How do you gauge this move?
I think it was about time, actually.
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz, he was very inconsistent. There were some games where his defense looked unstoppable, and then there was other defensive calls. You're just like, what are you doing? Like, why are you sending an all-out blitz on a 4th and 8 or something like that? 4th and 18, all-out blitz.
Yeah.
Why? What are you doing? So there was, some, advantages and disadvantages with Schwartz. It's tough because he was one of the guys that led us to a Super Bowl and all that, but I think it was due. I think it was time for them to start to look towards other options. And Jim Schwartz even said that he may just flat out retire. So if that's the case, then it probably was the right call.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I think overall, if you take the 5 years together, he delivered like a top 10 defense, statistically. But as we know from watching the games, it's really hard to play his style of defense if you don't have the right components. And one of the things that he always did is that he leaves his cornerbacks on islands with these wide receivers because he commits so much to the defensive line and, having those linebackers and defensive linemen play so far up to the line of scrimmage. So he doesn't really leave a lot of help for those cornerbacks, which exposed us in 2018, 2019. This year has been a little bit better with Darius Slay, but, still a lot of question marks all there in the defensive backfield and in the linebacking core because he's so focused on the defensive line. So I think that a new defensive coordinator could bring a scheme that's more suited to our players and their potential, because we've seen cornerbacks that played here that we thought, oh my God, they're no good. We've seen them go on and do, not amazing, but do decently with other teams. So a lot of it, I think, is scheme. So a new scheme will be beneficial to us in the long run. So while it's sad to see him go, like you said, I think definitely overdue.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of changes coming up for the Eagles in 2021, especially with the results of the latest game. The Eagles dropped a close one to our division rivals, the Washington football team. They lost 20-14. And with that, they've secured the 6th overall spot in the draft, which is crucial for an Eagles team that desperately needs to rebuild. So there's going to be some key new players on the team next year with such a high draft pick. But Rich, along with that loss comes a lot of controversy from many different angles. We're getting it from other teams. We're getting it from internally. We're getting it from analysts. What the hell is going on here? When did losing become such a big controversy? There are accusations that we tanked, Rich, in a season that has the Jets and the Jaguars. There are accusations that we've tanked.
No! We threw a Week 17 meaningless game?
Are you telling me a 4-10-1 team shouldn't try their hardest in Week 17, Rich?
This is the dumbest thing I think I may have seen this entire NFL season.
That's saying something.
I cannot believe the outrage on this game. Of course the Eagles are trying to lose. They don't want to lose 3 spots in the draft order.
Yeah.
Like, and for those, all right, there's so many things that I have to get off my chest here.
Go for it. Pull that soapbox out.
The difference between the 6th and the 9th pick is actually pretty substantial.
Mm-hmm.
With the 6th pick in the draft, the Eagles can pretty much do whatever they want to. If they want to trade up and get the top overall prospect, like non-quarterback prospect, they can. They can move up a couple spots and get the best overall draft player. Look at Chase Young. Look what that did to the Redskins. The Eagles pull a move like that in the draft this year because they're at 6 and not at 9. You can't do that same move if you're at 9. You got to give up much more capital if you're at 9.
Absolutely.
So that logic, get that out the window. Number 2, this one blows me away. The Giants fans that are upset at Doug Peterson and the Eagles organization saying that we owed it to them to play a fair game. Who the hell are the New York Football Giants? We don't owe you anything.
Last I checked, we're division rivals.
Yeah. Screw you. I want you to be out of the playoffs. As a matter of fact, you should be. You're 6-10. You don't deserve to be in the playoffs. You have double-digit losses.
That's the thing that gets me the most. A 6-10 team is pissed that a 4-11 team didn't play hard enough. Excuse me. You look at your own record first before you start counting on 4-11 teams to get you into the playoffs.
I would like to say screw you to Joe Judge for coming out with that stupid press release where he thinks he's Mr. Right Mighty. As long as I'm in charge, there will never be an issue like that, and blah blah blah. All right, let's see you go 13-3 or 13-2 or something. You wrap up the division. You're not going to play your starters Week 17. And there's another thing too. Other teams do this. This is not unheard of.
All the time.
Plenty of other teams throw Week 17 games. It's the nature of the schedule. This doesn't just happen in football. This happens in basketball. It happens in baseball. You don't take a risk when you don't need to take a risk.
Right, exactly.
It's smart gameplay logic. I can't believe how just bonkers people are over this. And everyone at ESPN should get fired if they took an issue to Doug Peterson's, trying to tank mentality. Rex Ryan, another one. Oh, if I was the head coach, you would have never got that from me. Oh, yeah, I guess that's why the Jets didn't do jack shit when they were with you the entire time. Oh, my God. Oh.
Wow. You were really angry about that. I mean, and rightfully so. It is a topic that is really frustrating to hear. And I think it's a non-topic if, one, it's not the Eagles, and 2, it's not a nationally televised game.
Yeah, that's another thing, too. The Eagles didn't ask to be primetime on Sunday night. The NFL flexed them for godforsaken reason to put them on Sunday Night Football. If you're angry at that, blame the NFL. Don't blame the Eagles and Doug Peterson and Howie. That is completely wrong.
Exactly. Everybody collectively questioned why they flexed 2 losing teams to primetime in the final game of the season. And now those same people are getting annoyed that, guess what? It was a subpar game. It's like, shocker. Did you really expect the 6-9 football team versus the 4-11 Philadelphia Eagles to be an amazing game? No, of course not. I'm not surprised that the Eagles lost. I was one of the people that wanted them to lose because it's better for them to lose in this situation. It prevents another division rival from getting into the playoffs. and it gets us a better draft spot, and it keeps our players healthy. There's literally no reason for this team to win.
Yep.
There's no other than the integrity of the game, which if you want to talk about the integrity of the game, let's talk about, cracking down on cheap shots. Let's talk about teams like the Dolphins that tanked for years and years and years. Let's talk about the Jets this year and their ridiculous call against the Raiders, right? Let's talk about all these other issues of integrity of the game. Let's talk about continued performance-enhancing drug problems. Let's talk about the integrity of the game. Let's talk about rescheduling games to Wednesday afternoons. Let's talk about the rampant COVID violations. Let's talk about everything else. Let's talk about the problem the NFL has with, off-the-field issues with many of its players. Integrity of the game, get out of here. I don't believe that bullshit for a second.
I love the fact that you're still upset over the fact that the NFL had a Wednesday afternoon game.
Of course I am. This season has been an absolute train wreck from the very start, and mostly for the Eagles. And yes, I'm a bitter Eagles fan, but we can't deny that this season has been exceptionally messed up. And I'm trying not to drop too many bad words on this podcast because we still try to be PG-13, but it's a cluster F of the season.
Fluster cluck.
There you go. A flustercuck. Yeah. But particularly for the Eagles have had a really rough go of it. And the tanking aside, we need to delve into the repercussions of the tanking, because while it's the right move, it can also be the wrong move given the reactions internally that have happened. So apparently Eagles players and coaches, this is according to a Philadelphia Inquirer article, were, quote, shocked and outraged by the benching of quarterback Jalen Hurts partway through the game. Rich, is this a problem? Does this?
No.
No, what? You don't even know what the question is.
Not a problem.
Not a problem?
I'm sorry.
Right, so you're telling me that it's not a problem that multiple defensive players had to be held back from approaching Peterson, that Jason Kelsey went up and talked to Peterson about it, questioning the call, that coaches are questioning the call, that Jalen Hurts was caught on camera saying that's not right? You don't see locker room issues boiling over here? You don't see Peterson losing the locker room in a season where he goes 4?
No, it's the end of the season.
So you don't see this being an issue in the offseason?
No, it's the end of the season. If somebody look, maybe in the heat of the moment, tempers flare, everything like that, that's fine. It'll happen. That's fine. You're going to get stories like this. Jalen Hurts did say that he didn't like the move and all this stuff. All right. But if one of these players actually holds on to this grudge for a couple of weeks, then get them off the team. You have no idea, the benefits of losing this game. This is a nothing burger. Anybody that still remains upset over this game is a loser with a capital L.
Yeah, but the issue that I see is that for a team that has had so much turmoil this season, where the coaches are already on the hot seat, it's one thing to have external pressure and outrage, but to have that internal strife.
Most of them are going to be gone anyway. I hate to say it. There's going to be a lot of turnover happening anyway.
I mean, you're right.
If you're willing to hold this grudge over Doug Peterson, he'll trade you away. And Howie too. He'll get rid of you. This is going to be a season where there's going to be a lot of turnover. I would not recommend to any of the Eagles players that still want to have a job, please, you better not put this grudge and have it last throughout the offseason.
I mean, you're right. There will be a huge amount of turnover. We're probably going to be saying goodbye to a lot of big names. But the turnover that I'm interested in here is, do you think Peterson could have damaged his standing with the team? And I don't mean just with the players, but with the rest of the coaching staff and the higher ups, because you can see how coaches can lose a locker room. Remember Chip Kelly in his last year and a half, how he lost the locker room. You don't see something like this potentially being an issue?
No, Chip Kelly, his stubbornness to call every play out of the shotgun, that's what loses confidence, is when you're so stubborn and you think you're going to revolutionize the sport and you're so stubborn in your ways. That's what will get you. I think what will happen is the Eagles are going to have to go through a lot of turnover. There's going to be a lot of player movement. We're going to be seeing heroes let go and players that we don't want to see let go. But after that, I think Doug still holds on to the locker room, assuming that he doesn't do anything else, mind-bogglingly stupid, like, trade for Sam Bradford or something.
Yeah, but he's already had a lot of questionable calls this season.
He has, but I think part of the problem with that was he didn't have an offensive coordinator. He has to get an offensive coordinator this offseason. He's got to get some new blood in there to give him some new plays and fresh ideas. Now, if he goes through the offseason and he doesn't get an offensive coordinator and he's still stubborn and he says, I can still call my own plays and stuff, all right, now you're starting to lead me on this path. All right, then you're looking at losing the confidence of everybody. But just only for tanking a Week 17 game, this is nothing. This is a complete nothing burger.
I don't think it's just the tanking. I think it's the culmination of the subpar season, last season being a subpar season, that stubbornness of not having an OC, the tanking of the game, but how he handled Carson Wentz throughout the season. I mean, now there's talks that Carson Wentz is going to request a trade, that his relationship with Doug Peterson has been irreparably damaged. I mean, these are all these little things I'm seeing, these tiny smoke signals of larger issues in that locker room, that organization. We've talked, previous weeks about how the organization has deep, systemic flaws to it. And this is just another emblematic issue.
What would you do? Would you get rid of Doug Peterson?
I don't think you get rid of Doug Peterson just for that. But I think that if I were Laurie, I'd come in and say, you need an OC.
Yeah.
You need a new quarterbacks coach. And you need to either fix whatever the hell went wrong with Carson Wentz, your relationship, and get him to perform again, or you need to make a decisive move before that contract becomes guaranteed. I think that if Peterson, you have to move Wentz at this point. You have to. There's no way he can come back and play well for the Eagles.
I would say so. But we'll see. There have been stranger things that have happened than a disgraced quarterback trying to come back and capture the lore that he once had with the team. So, we'll see. I think that's going to depend on if there's any trade partners. If there's no trade partners, Wentz doesn't get traded. What are they going to do? Outright cut him? They're not going to do that.
No, they're not. They're not going to cut him. But I think teams will sniff. But I think Doug Peterson has to make serious concessions and changes. I think one way or another, he's on the hot seat in 2021. Even if he does make changes, 2021 will be either the year that keeps him as coach or the year where he gets fired.
Yeah.
Because the last two seasons back-to-back have been not even a slow and steady decline, but like a freaking tailspin of a decline. We went from winning the Super Bowl to in 3 years being basically a bottom 5 team. For all intents and purposes, that tie saved us from becoming like a bottom 3 team. So, with a tailspin like that, I think he should already be in the hot seat. If he's not already in the hot seat, he's got like one butt cheek on it. Next year, he's going to be firmly planted in it. And I think this whole kerfuffle with Week 17, even if it was the right move, I think it only stoked the flames. And I think Jeffrey Lurie is seeing everything that's happening. He's like, God, this season has been a train wreck for so many different reasons. This is the last thing that the Eagles brass and the internal people wanted to have happen.
Yeah, well, I can't believe how much drama this created.
The tanking was the right move, but it ultimately might have undone Peterson.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
Well, how about we get to teams that are actually in the playoffs, because we've got a lot of games to talk about.
Yes, we do. We have a ton, and this is completely unique this year in that we have 6, that's right, count them, 6 wild card games to talk about. They are the Super 6 picks. We've never done this before, Rich. We've never called 6 games before. This is uncharted territory. But the NFL, this is an uncharted season, so we have 6 wild card games, the first of which is a little bit of an offensive showdown, an aerial assault between the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Buffalo to face off against the Bills. It's a Saturday, 1 o'clock game. Rich, who do you like in this matchup? Both these teams, top 10 offenses, very potent at moving the football. Who do you see coming out on top in this one?
I'm very fascinated that you focused on the offenses because there is something to look at when it comes to defense. The
Okay,
Colts have actually had a pretty good defense throughout the
they have.
majority of this season. The Bills, starting off the season, didn't have too good of a defense. Although the Bills have been lighting opponents up the last 4 or 5 games of the season, I don't know. And I hate to say this because Buffalo has been one of those tortured franchises that
Yeah.
they should deserve a playoff run. But I got a gut feeling that the loss of not having the bye week for the number 2 seed is going to screw somebody over.
Mm.
And between the two number 2 seeds, I think it's going to be the Bills. A young quarterback, not too much playoff experience, a defense that, while they looked good recently, they haven't actually been as good as they once were. On the other hand, the Colts have a really good running game that has kicked into gear, a consistent defense. I think it just comes down to if Phillip Rivers plays a decent game. I don't know. I could see the Colts taking this one and screwing the Bills out of a playoff win here early on. I kind of like the Colts.
Wow. Okay. I'm not going to overcomplicate things. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills at home. It's going to be cold in Buffalo. Phillip Rivers is getting old. He's not used to playing in cold climates like that, either when he was with the Chargers or in the Dome in Indianapolis. So he's going to go into Buffalo facing a team that is energized, being in the playoffs for the first time in a while, having such a great season back-to-back with last season. They're one of those up-and-coming teams, whereas the Colts, they're in that like B tier of teams. At times they flash brilliance, at times they don't look so hot. I think the Bills are finally going to get a good playoff appearance here and show the Colts that they deserve to be there. So I'm going to keep it simple, go with the Bills at home.
Okay.
Next up, we have an NFC West division rematch. The LA Rams are traveling to Seattle. It's a Saturday 4:40 game. Rich, who do you like in this one?
Now, this one I'll keep simple because this is Russell Wilson at home versus some backup quarterback with LA. I don't think Jared Goff is going to be able to make it in time from his
No, probably not.
from his thumb surgery. So I'm going to, just between the fact that they're down their star quarterback, I'm going to go Seahawks in this one.
Yeah. I mean, the Rams do have that top defense in the league, but like you said, this is a game increasingly about quarterback play. And if you have a backup quarterback, that's not to say backup quarterbacks can't do well in the playoffs. Look at the Eagles from 2017. Yeah. But, the Eagles were exceptional that year. The Rams are 10-6. It's not terrible, but it's also not great. The Seahawks, however, comfortable at home. Russell Wilson is experienced here in the playoffs. Like you said, keep it simple. Seahawks all the way.
And whenever I bet on the Rams, they lose. So I'm just gonna not bet on them, and then. Oh wait, or should I bet on them? I guess I should bet on them. I'll throw like $2 on them, and then they'll lose.
Okay, there you go, and that'll guarantee a Seahawks win.
Yeah.
Next up, we have an odd matchup here. Two teams that we didn't think we'd be talking about in the playoffs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady in the NFC, against the Washington football team at Washington. This is a Saturday primetime game. Rich, what's happening and why?
All right, I'm going to say something right here.
Oh, man, don't you dare. Don't you even dare.
Look, the last time, so far, a below 500 division winner, when they've made the playoffs, have won in the first round. There is something that goes with being a home underdog in the playoffs, especially for a division winner that a lot of people think they shouldn't be there. I'm still going to go with Tampa Bay. But
I was going to say.
But I think the point spread is 9.5 for Washington. I would say go with the point spread. I would take Washington.
They cover?
I'd say for 9.5 points, that's a lot in a playoff game.
Yeah. Look, So you're right. Below average teams, when they make the playoffs, traditionally win that first game. I think the Seahawks were one of the first ones to do it back in the early, I think it was like mid 2000s. I think at some point they won a shocker. I think recently it happened again. I can't remember who, but usually a sub 500 team making the playoffs wins their first game. But I just think that the Buccaneers have too much firepower on their side of the ball to really overcome. I mean, even though they're on the road, it's still Tom Brady. Tom Brady in the playoffs, regardless of the uniform, you got to give him a slight edge. And the Washington football team, they're still the Washington football team. They only scored 20 points against the Eagles, third-string players, in the middle of a quarterback controversy, actively trying to lose a game. They're going to need more than 20 points to beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I'm going with the Buccaneers.
Yep. So, by the way, it's 8.5 points on the spread right now. So
there you go.
That's 2 possessions. It's possible they could cover the spread.
Okay. There you go. A little bit of betting advice from Rich over there. Maybe you can give us some betting advice on this one. We have a ground attack, ground and pound, old style football. We got the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Tennessee to face off against the Titans. Rich, these are the top 2 teams in terms of rushing the football. Who could you see edging out the other one in this matchup?
This is an interesting one because these teams are built kind of similarly.
They are.
The only difference is that Lamar Jackson is also a running threat as well. Ryan Tannehill, he can run sometimes, but not all the time. And the Tennessee defense, they've been wildly inconsistent this whole year. If you're looking for a team that at least has a steady defensive presence, I think you go more on the Ravens here. I just can't trust Tennessee with them having some games where they're winning and some games where they get blown out. I think the Ravens may have had a little bit of a fire lit underneath them. Remember, at one point they were like 7-5, and people were saying that they might not make the playoffs. Do they even, deserve to be in the playoffs? Since then, they've gotten their act together. I think this is due. I think the Ravens take this one and move on in the playoffs.
So this is a really interesting matchup. You're right. The Ravens do have the edge in terms of defense, but teams are starting to figure out Lamar Jackson. And it seems like one of the teams that have somewhat figured him out are the Titans. They beat them earlier this year. It was a close game, but they edged them out. And just Derrick Henry, man, I mean, that dude just continues to impress when you can lean on a running back like that. So the reason why the Ravens are so good in terms of the ground attack is because of Lamar Jackson. If they find a way to shut Lamar Jackson down, all of a sudden it makes that team so one-dimensional. So I think if Tennessee can shut down Lamar Jackson again and then lean on Derrick Henry on the other side of the ball, the Ravens are going to have a really tough time beating Tennessee at home. Those are very big ifs. I admit that. These teams are very similar. But I just like Tennessee's story. They were really good last year. They were really good this year. I think they're finding their footing as a team a little bit. So I'm going to go with the Titans again. If they can control the clock, control Lamar Jackson, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to beat this game. The Ravens, on the other hand, it all runs through Jackson. If they can't get Jackson going, they might struggle a little bit. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Saints and Sinners. We have the Chicago Bears at the New Orleans Saints. Rich, does Drew Brees, aging, old, crippled, win another playoff game? Or do the Bears shock the Saints at home? This is a Sunday 4:40 game.
Don't overthink it. Drew Brees at home. Bears have looked, their defense has been consistent, but I can't.
You're not buying them.
I can't trust the Bears up against a top tier team. When the Bears face somebody that is on their level or beneath them, they handle the job. But against the Saints, I don't see it happening. I think Saints take this one easily too. I think too their point spread is pretty big too. I think they're at 9.5. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like anybody has faith in the Bears. So I'm going to go Saints on this one.
Yeah, these two teams matched up earlier in the year. I think it was when the Saints were down or missing Drew Brees, and the Saints still beat the Bears. So, out of all the playoff teams, the Bears are kind of the most lackluster of the group. I know that's weird saying, the Washington football team being at 7-9, not being the most lackluster, but you're right. The Bears just, what do they have going for them? There's no real facet of their game that you point out and go, yeah, that's a great facet. At least with the Washington football team, you're like, wow, that defense can step up when pressured. Chase Young, they can step up, and even Alex Smith is a decent quarterback. You can't point out those things about the Bears. So you're right. Don't overthink this, guys. It's Saints all the way. Next up, we have an AFC North Division rematch, and this is probably one of the best games of the bunch. The Cleveland Browns travel to Pittsburgh to face off against the Steelers amid a rash of COVID outbreaks. This is a Sunday primetime game. Rich, who wins this one? You're shaking your head. What's the matter? You're just mad the Browns are there.
No, I'm mad that COVID.
That the Steelers are there, or mad at COVID.
I'm mad at COVID because if COVID hadn't run through the coaching staff and some of the players, I think the Browns would have had a decent shot at knocking off the Steelers. And what a storyline would that have been? But without their head coach, without a couple of players due to COVID, I don't know. I think Steelers take this one. I hate to say it because I really would like to see the Browns get some redemption this year and win a playoff game. But I think Steelers take this one. They're at home. Big Ben's back. Their defense, is usually, top tier. I think Steelers take this one.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the Browns were missing some players in their last matchup with the Steelers just this previous week, in which they beat the Steelers.
Yeah, but the Steelers didn't have Big Ben and a couple of other players as well. Hey, guess what? How do you like that? How's that for tanking week 17? Oh, you don't see any outrage on the Steelers, do you?
You're still so upset about that. I love it.
So dumb. It was such a nothing burger. Anyway.
You're right. You're right. It was a nothing burger. Man, this is a tough one. The first time these teams matched up, the Steelers blew out the Browns. The second time they matched up just a week ago, the Browns barely edged them out. But like you said, Ben Roethlisberger wasn't on the field. But you know what? I don't know. For some reason, I just think that the Browns this season, they're just a great story. I would love to see the Browns win. I'm not a fan of the Steelers. I haven't been a fan of the Steelers ever, especially in recent years. For some reason, I just don't fully buy them. I know they're 12-4. It sounds ridiculous to say that, but I think the Browns, if they can lean on that ground game, if they can, keep Ben Roethlisberger off the field, there's no reason why they couldn't edge out the Steelers here. It's really tough to beat a team in back-to-back weeks. So the Browns definitely have an uphill battle. But for whatever reason, I think they might ride. You mentioned with the, sometimes underdog teams can do great things in the playoffs. And I think the Browns here might ride that underdog wave, down some players with COVID, first playoff appearance in 2 decades, playing a division rival. It just feels like the perfect opportunity to really make their stamp on things and to give it their all and come out all guns blazing. I'm going to go out on a limb ridiculously and pick the Browns in the playoffs. Why not? It's that type of year, right? It's that type of football season. Against all better logic, I'm picking the Browns.
All right, there you go. That is our 6 picks for the NFL playoffs.
The Super 6 picks.
Super 6 picks. There you go.
For Super Wild Card Weekend.
That's right. All right, let's leave the sports realm. We got to get to some entertainment news. It is a brand new year here in 2021. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at the state of movies in 2021. Mike,
Yeah.
what are you thinking of when you look ahead this year?
Well, what I'm thinking about is that, as we dole out these vaccines for COVID and as hopefully we start to get this thing a little bit under control, we could have a really great year for movies, because not only do we have all the movies that are coming out in 2021, we also have all the movies that were supposed to come out in 2020. Remember that early on in the pandemic, a lot of movies got pushed back to 2021. And when you go through the list of movies coming out, it's like mind-boggling how many blockbusters there are. So right off the bat, we have some new Sony movies in the Spider-Man universe. We have Morbius. We have the second Venom movie. You have, on the other side of things, one of your favorite franchises, No Time to Die. James Bond coming back into theaters April 2nd, hopefully. Another early movie that got pushed out of 2020 last year is A Quiet Place Part 2, the sequel to A Quiet Place, which was one of the better horror movies with John Krasinski from a few years ago. You have the MCU returning with Black Widow. We finally got our first look at Phase 4 in theaters. But you also have some other MCU films in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, as well as, I think that's the only other, The Eternals. So 3 MCU films possibly in 2021. We have adaptations of West Side Story, and if I could find it, I believe it's called In the Heights, a Lin-Manuel Miranda musical. After the great success of Hamilton getting adapted to film, we have In the Heights now coming to film as well. Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
You're waiting for me to say something that you recognize. How about this one? Ghostbusters Afterlife hitting theaters in June. So right off the bat, we have an amazing slate of movies, basically 2 years worth of movies to see in 1 year. It's going to be a really, really good year for movies if we can get back to theaters, right?
Yeah, but I think that's a big if.
Okay.
Because, man, I don't know. I don't know how long it's really going to take for coronavirus to officially, dissipate and allow us to return to movie theaters. I think it's going to take quite some time. I kind of go by concerts, and from what I've been hearing from a lot of people, don't expect any concerts in 2021. It's just
wow, none of them.
Yeah, it's just it's
so.
Too
Do you
soon.
think it's pie in the sky then to think about movies returning to theaters?
It is, I think, for the first 6 months. I don't see it happening for from now until June. That's too soon. But maybe, as the vaccines are rolled out, as more people get it, as the rates go down from deaths, maybe past that July, summer blockbuster point. Maybe at that point we get lucky and we can go to the movie theaters again.
Yeah, I have to say that I am surprised at some of these movies. I mean, take No Time to Die, for instance. That has an April 2nd release date. That seems really optimistic for such a big film. I feel like that, like you said, I think the marker will probably be the midpoint of the year. Sometime that June, July timeline is more realistic than March and April.
That movie was supposed to come out in 2019 and it got delayed because of shooting and editing stuff, and then the coronavirus. That movie has been on hold for a full 2 years.
So this brings up an interesting point. These movies that have been delayed, what type of impact do you think it has eventually when they release? Do you think that expectations become watered down? Do you think that hype dies down, or do you think that hype increases the longer these movies are held back? Because I got to tell you, No Time to Die, when originally announced, I was like, that sounds like an interesting plot. Now I'm kind of like, the hype is completely gone. Same thing with A Quiet Place Part 2. I was really looking forward to that. And now, the way that movie marketing works is now I'm looking towards the next new thing. Quiet Place Part 2 is going to be shoehorned in there somewhere in April. Now, I'm already looking to other stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you there. A lot of these movies, it's going to be a de-hyping, if you will. Um, but if it's a franchise that commands respect, then I think it'll still be all right. Like the James Bond franchise, that movie will still be all right no matter when it comes out.
Right. In terms of
Any
ticket sales, yeah.
right, any Marvel movies, that'll be fine. Maybe A Quiet Place, since it's not fully established as a franchise, that may take a hit. So that's like the stuff I would keep an eye on, is those movies that haven't been established yet.
Yeah. Another interesting aspect is maybe the types of movies that people are drawn to. You know, maybe less action-oriented movies and more feel-good movies, or, you know, A Quiet Place Part 2 might be tough for people if it's all doom and gloom and apocalypse, and, you know, so you might see people trend away from something like that. Maybe more rom-coms see higher ticket sales, or, you know, more the MCU movies are probably people's best bets. You know, those always do really well. I think they'll continue to do well. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on to see how these trends shift. You know, I mean, maybe we see some family-oriented movies do really well as families are looking to get out of the house for the first time in a long time. You know, maybe we see some of the more dramatic pieces not do as well. It'll also be interesting to see, you know, now Warner Brothers is releasing everything on HBO Max. So it'll be interesting to see if unexpected movies do really well on streaming compared to in theaters, and maybe that pushes more studios to look towards that model. 2021 brings with it a lot of really interesting questions in terms of the industry and Hollywood in general. One of the questions I know getting asked is, will there be a summer movie season? You know, the idea of the blockbuster season has kind of gone out the window for 2021, given the fact that so many movies have been pushed back and shuffled around. You know, we're getting blockbusters in April and more blockbusters in November. There's no really summer movie season, as it were, anymore. It's basically the whole year now, as studios try to find places to insert these movies from last year.
Yeah, so. I would say, yeah, that's probably not going to happen for 2021. Maybe it'll be a fall explosion, you know, because whenever you do get the green light and people are comfortable going back into the movie theaters, then you're going to have, you know, the results that they want. It all comes down to COVID. I forget which politician, I think Biden might have said it, that you have to solve COVID first. You know, before you can think of any of these other problems, it comes down to when COVID is solved.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'll tell you, watching Wonder Woman 1984 in Seoul really gave me a newfound craving to go see new movies. It made me realize that how much I enjoyed going to see movies. So I'm hoping that whenever the theaters open back up, people will, you know, open up safely and COVID comes under control, not just, you know, attempted reopenings like we have in the past with Tenet. But, you know, when they actually reopen, I hope that people go and check out some movies. And, you know, I can't wait to get back to the theaters. I always love going to the theaters. I know for me personally, it's not going to change my movie viewing habits. I'm still going to go see all the movies that I love to go see. It's just interesting, the talk surrounding the industry about, you know, what films might sink and swim, and, you know, where people's interests might lie. I saw another question that I think you were interested in about moviegoers embracing comic book multiverse movies. You know, is this now too much of a heady topic for moviegoers coming out of a pandemic, or do you think this is the perfect time for multiverse movies as people are looking for pure escapism?
Well, I hope you guys are, because it seems that both comic book movie franchises are diving headfirst into multiverses. You got Marvel with, you know, what they're going to do with Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse and Doctor Strange and everything like that. And then with DC, we had this announcement that there's going to be 2 Batmans. You're going to have Batmen. Yeah, I guess that's the proper plurality of that now. but I'm going to say Batman's. I think it still sounds
Batman's.
um,
Okay.
because you're going to have the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, and they've announced that Michael Keaton is going to return for another Batman role. So you better drink it in if you're a comic book fan. It's going to be all multiverse all the time.
It's going to be a lot to drink in, but I'm going to be there for all of them. At least the MCU multiverse movies. Like, really looking forward to those. One movie that I know I'm not looking forward to, and we have to touch on this as we look at the slate of upcoming movies in 2021. There's one coming out just next week, set to premiere on HBO Max. And this is drawing a little bit of ire online. Locked Down, an HBO Max original. If you haven't seen the trailer, it dropped on the 5th. It is about a couple who has been trapped together in quarantine. That's right. This is the first COVID-themed movie already in 2021 while the pandemic is still ongoing. So a couple trapped in quarantine together, just as they decide to separate, find themselves stuck in mandatory lockdown. And then they decide to hatch a jewelry store heist.
Yeah.
For reasons unknown. I guess they want the trailer's look, I have lots of problems with this. But one thing that I really hate about this trailer is twofold. One, they're taking advantage of a pandemic. And two, the movie is about people taking advantage of a pandemic in a movie taking advantage of a pandemic. This is
meta.
This is far too meta for me to stomach. And I'm surprised that more people haven't come out and it's drawn a little bit of ire, but not nearly, I think, enough. Rich, what's your hot take on this movie? Is this too soon, given the fact that it's still currently a pandemic right now?
I'm kind of surprised that this movie wasn't called Ocean's 10 or some sort of Ocean's signature.
Right.
Because the second half of this trailer that is on HBO Max, it literally seems like an Ocean's movie because it turns into this plot about a jewel heist coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's really bizarre. I don't know who thought this was an interesting idea, but I think it's just ill-timed and not the right kind of movie you want to put out there right now.
Yeah, in the midst of something that's been so difficult for people, to try and put out a movie that capitalizes on it, I think is incredibly tone deaf.
Yeah.
And man, I don't know. It's just a bad look. I was shocked to see a trailer. I mean, you knew that the movies were going to happen, right? You knew there were going to be movies about the pandemic, but not during the pandemic, right?
And not about taking advantage of people during the pandemic.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing that bugs me the most. It's the movie itself is taking advantage, but then the characters in the movie are also taking advantage. And the trailer makes it seem like, oh, they're stealing jewelry from, a bad corporation or whatever, but it still doesn't sit right with me, this whole pandemic themed movie. So already 2021 offering up, I think, the first questionable movie of the year, debuting next week on HBO Max. I wouldn't recommend giving it a view, but to each their own.
Yeah.
You can do what you like. So there you go. The state of movies in 2021. It is still as up in the air as ever. But I think overall, if the pandemic gets under control, we could have a really good year for movies. I'm really excited that Warner Brothers is debuting movies on HBO Max. I know there's a few movies coming directly to Disney Plus. So if the theaters can get open as well, we have the best of both worlds. We have movies premiering on streaming, and we can have movies premiering in the theater. And we get all those movies from 2020 and all the movies from 2021. So definitely something to keep an eye on and see how it goes. And like Rich said, it all comes down to COVID. If COVID gets sorted, this could be a fantastic movie season. If it doesn't get sorted, we're going to get treated to lots of gems like Locked Down on HBO Max. So there you go. Something to watch for. Well,
all right. So
that was a lot.
Now, with all that out of the way, let's get to some real news. We got to get to some odd news. Uh, this might be appropriate coming off of lockdown because this is a story of somebody taking everything way too seriously, including their social media accounts.
Okay.
We're going to go to North Dakota in this one.
Okay. North Dakota.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever had a story from North Dakota.
Yeah, isn't that where Wentz is from?
Yes, it is. It is.
But Wentz, you better get on this guy.
Maybe Wentz knows this person, since I think there's only like 47 people in North Dakota, right? Last time I checked.
If he does, this person needs help. So Wentz, go help this guy out.
Okay.
Because a North Dakota man threatened to kill a former coworker and kicked in the victim's front door.
Oh my God.
All because he refused to accept his Facebook friend request.
Oh, come on. Dude. Really?
You deny me. How dare you? I'm going to kill you. My friend.
Yeah, right. First off. If somebody's really your friend, why are you threatening to kill this person? Okay. Secondly, dude, just let it go. Look, people know, because I am forever absent from social media, that it's not my cup of tea. So I can't personally imagine somebody getting that annoyed, and I can't imagine myself getting that annoyed over a social media snub. But Rich, as somebody who is in the throes of it, I mean, how serious is this for somebody not to accept a friend request?
How dare you? Yeah, you're supposed to be my friend. Die, replacement friend.
Die, replacement friend. But I mean, is it that big a deal? It's not that big a deal, right?
Well, this guy made it so.
How close were they in real life? Because it is awkward sometimes if one person thinks that they're super close and the other person's like, you're
cable guy syndrome.
Yes, cable guy syndrome, exactly. Yeah. Which is tough with coworkers sometimes, because it's like, is it a work thing, or is it like legit, like, actual buddy friendship? Sometimes it's a little strange like that. We've all been there. But man, this is just threatening to kill somebody over this. This is so unbelievably stupid. So go ahead, Rich. What's the rest of the story?
So
kicks in his door.
So let's start off from the beginning. Police allege that 29-year-old Caleb Bursick sent a series of threatening text and Facebook messages to 39-year-old Robert Allen Thomas.
Okay.
Bursick formerly worked with Thomas and his brother-in-law for a company that maintains oil wells. But after Thomas and his relative left to work for another firm, Bursick was laid off and remained unemployed. When he found his Facebook profile, he sent him a friend request. He denied the friend request.
Uh-oh.
He then sent it again with a Facebook message that said, quote, "You better accept my friend request or I'm going to murder you."
Is that their brand of humor, or is that, I mean, I guess you wouldn't know that in the story.
Be my friend or I'm going to kill you.
That's really aggressive. Be my friend or I'm going to kill you. It's like, I don't know if I want to have a friend who's willing to kill me.
It's a whole new definition to kill him with kindness. I'm going to kill you. Be my friend.
Kill him with kindness. Yeah, exactly.
So then in a follow-up text message, Bursick also told Thomas that, quote, "I'm going to come at you, bro, if you don't accept my friend request." This guy is obsessed with Facebook.
He really is. Like, what is this? Like the quest to have, that's the problem, is everybody's so obsessed with, like, I can see him being like, oh my gosh, if somebody doesn't accept my friend request, that means that I'm somehow like less than as a person, or like, it looks bad if I don't have a certain number of friends, and yada, yada, yada. it's unhealthy when it gets to that point. You know, that person shouldn't have Facebook at all, probably.
Yeah. Bursick then traveled to Thomas's home where several other of his family members lived and kicked in the front door.
What was he going to do? Was he going to like pull out a laptop and force this dude to click confirm?
You are going to hit this right now. You are going to accept my friend request right now. Do it now.
Oh my God. That's so obnoxious.
He must have a really good kick to knock down the front door. That's pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive.
Should have done karate. Should have been on Cobra Kai, not Facebook.
Putting your energies towards the wrong things.
Yeah. Bursick was then collared after Thomas's father called 911 to report a burglary.
Okay.
The house also had a home security system, so that probably triggered them all first, got the cops there faster than usual.
Right.
Bursick was charged with burglary and terrorizing.
Well, yeah.
I love that that's a separate charge, terrorizing.
Well, he was terrorizing them. It makes sense.
Yeah. Apparently this dude's got money because he posted his $50,000 bond.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe he was a friend worth having if he's got $50,000 just lying around the house.
Right? He's just like, oh, that's no big deal. I'll just cut a check. Yeah, you might want to actually friend that guy on Facebook.
Yeah. I do have his mugshot here, so.
Okay, of course.
There he is. He looks pretty friendly.
He actually does. He looks like a normal guy. He looks like a friendly, normal guy, which is crazy because most of these criminals look like how you.
Now be my friend. Be my Facebook friend. Ah! Be my Facebook friend.
He's not as pleasant when he's screaming at you and kicking down your door.
Yeah.
But normally, Rich, and you can back me up on this. People from the Odd News, they look like criminals. Like you show a mugshot and you're like that person looks like somebody who would expose themselves.
Yeah, but no, he looks pretty calm.
He looks pretty normal, pretty chill, yeah.
But he's got a hell of a roundhouse kick.
Yeah, and I probably still won't be his friend because I don't want to be murdered, you know?
Not for $50,000?
No, unless he's writing me a check for $50,000, I'm not going to be his friend.
I'll be your friend for $50,000.
I'll be anybody's friend for $50,000.
Yeah, if anybody wants to buy my friendship, let me know.
Yeah, send me a check and a Facebook friend request.
Yeah,
and
don't kick down my door. It's pretty expensive to get those replaced.
Yeah, those are the 3 requirements: a $50,000 check. Don't kick down the door, and a Facebook friend request. And you can have me as a friend. There you go. I'm selling my friendship.
The Crispy Noodle does it again.
I don't know what it was, but we did it.
We're selling friendships.
We're selling friendships from the bottom of our heart. We're so generous.
And our wallet. Please help.
You can have our friendship for a mere $50,000. Look, break it down this way. You can have a lifelong friendship. So that's not $50,000 for a year of friendship. That's a lifelong friendship. How many more years you got left? Maybe 50 years? That's $1,000 a year. That's cheap for a friend. That's nothing. Could you imagine, Rich? $1,000
$3 a day.
Exactly, right? Oh my God, that's basically free.
For $3 a day, you can have the friendship of the Crispy Noodle.
There's no reason not to do it. Perfect. Sign up today.
Yes, there you go. And that's the Odd News for this week. Mike, let's go over apocalypse activities. What should people do this weekend?
Oh, so much. I have no idea. I played a new.
All right, fantastic.
No, hold on. I got some. So for Christmas, I got a board game, Evolution. People may or may not have heard of it. It's a decently well-known game, but I have been really enjoying this. I played it a couple times already with my girlfriend, and then I played it with my family, and we all had a blast. The basic premise of it is that you have to evolve. There's a shared watering hole that all of your animals, all your species have to eat from, and you have to evolve hence the game name evolution. You have to evolve your species with trait cards in order to continue feeding from the water hole and adapt to the changing environment, adapt to the other player's species, adapt to, rising and falling levels of food in the watering hole. So it's a really great in-depth strategy game about, striking that balance and making sure you're properly adapting your species. It's, board games are one of my favorite thing to do. And during the pandemic, I've had an opportunity to play a couple different board games, always looking for new activities to do. So it's one of those things that people tend to forget about sometimes. People are always like, oh, Netflix, or video games. Those are usually my top two suggestions, but give some physical games a chance. Card games, board games. It's a great opportunity to, you spend so much time inside with other people, but like to do something other than watch a show and like engage your mind and actually engage with the other people. So I recommend giving a board game like Evolution a try, or Ticket to Ride is another fan favorite, where you have to build a rail line from different cities. You get cards that have 2 destinations on it, and you have to build a rail line from one city to the other. It's a fantastic strategy game. I'm telling you, these 2 games, some of the most intense moments in board gaming ever. Trying to get that last train line in, or trying to evolve your species just right so, it takes the last of the food out of the watering hole and edge out your opponents. So go check out some board games, I think, would be my recommendation.
All right. My recommendation is simple. Watch Cobra Kai. It's available.
That's what you said last week, Rich.
Do it. I'm trying to get people to watch it. It's worth your time. It's easy to binge through. All the episodes are 25, 30 minutes. If you like the Karate Kid, there's no reason to not watch Cobra Kai. It is really good, worth your time. I love what they've done with the show, so that's what I'm recommending. Go check out Cobra Kai.
Okay.
But that's it for now. We have went over our hour. It is time to wrap this up. This has been the Crispy Compact Communiqué. Whether or not my laptop is broken, whether or not it's COVID or some other thing that goes wrong, we are still here to give you some sort of show every week. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You're following us on the website, thecrispynoodle.com. All that shebang-a-bang. Follow us. Make sure that you know that we are still active, even in the coronavirus era.
That's right. All that shebang-a-bang also includes subscribing to the YouTube channel, where you can find video versions of the podcast, but also you can find the audio version of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. So make sure you search for, download, and subscribe to the Crispy Noodle Podcast on either YouTube or the podcast service of your choice.
That's right. And we also have a SoundCloud page where we have the mini noodles. So if you want a quick promo clip of the show to easily share with friends and family the craziness that is our show, there it is. It's right there. Go to SoundCloud and search the Crispy Noodle Podcast.
That's right. So many ways to get in touch with and share the Crispy Noodle Podcast. If you want to get in touch with us individually to share your sports, entertainment, or odd news stories, you can find us individually on Twitter. I'm at Mikey Costanzo, MikeyCostanzo.
And I am at Rich Liebig, RichLiebig. Find us on the Twitters and let us know what's happening. If you agree or disagree with our positions, let us know and we will respond. And if we use it on the following show, we'll give you a shout out. So definitely let us know. But for right now, we got to wrap this recording up. This has been the Crispy Compact Communiqué, the COVID era version of the Crispy Noodle Podcast. Let us be the Crispy Noodle in your vegetarian salad of life and boring news. That will do it. We will see you guys next week.
See you guys
later. Bye-bye.